Now, it's true, as far as I understand it, that no tall steel frame building has collapsed before 9/11 due to fire. Now, due to fire is a bit of a misnomer because the major issue was not just, of course, the structural problems of two giant airplanes flying into the buildings, but also because this massive amount of jet fuel. And I just know this when I used to work as a gold panner and prospector up north after high school. We were in incredibly cold neighborhoods. We were deep, deep in the woods. Like you could only fly a seaplane in to get there. And I was there in the middle of winter. It was getting to be like -30, -40. And we actually had to mix jet fuel in with our regular fuel just to make it warm enough in the tents that we were in. So I do know that, at least from that standpoint, jet fuel burns extremely, extremely hot.
A kerosene is basically what jet fuel is, and I believe it burns a max of 1,400. And a little kerosene heater that people might have in their bedroom or their cabin burns at a maximum of 1,800. And I've got a fire going right here behind me here, like we've all had fires on our stove. And without oxygen being sent in like a blast heater, a typical, carbon-based fire won't burn hot enough, won't come close to melting steel, which was seen coming out of those buildings. It takes about 27 or 800 degrees. And the temperatures for 2 or 3 months, I believe the government reported temperatures of 1,400 degrees under the ground weeks and weeks after, and after millions of gallons of water had been poured on it, which was also a sign of a chemical like thermite, which has the oxygen already in it, a little bit like a sparkler you could use on 4th of July. You can put it under water and it keeps going. So anyway, you should be able to pile all the firewood you want in the World Trade Center and start that fire with gasoline, and it should never have gotten hot enough to put the building down. In fact, there's a famous photograph that you can look there on your computer. Mike can probably bring it up for you. There's a lady, I got her name here somewhere. She's standing, her name is Edna Centron. She's standing in the hole that the airplane supposedly made. And she's got blonde hair, and she looks, you could take that picture and transpose it to her standing on the beach. She seems pretty healthy, like it's not that hot of a fire. And a fireman up there in the building actually said, two isolated, let me see, how did he put it? I've got his exact quote, but basically there's two isolated little fires here and two hoses will knock it down. That just doesn't quite compute how that building could come down after he said that within an hour, and hundreds and hundreds of people heard multiple explosions. Should I stop for a minute?
Well, yeah, so we're not really having much of a debate because you're putting stuff, I'm putting counter stuff, and you're going on with other stuff.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
As far as the nanothermites, I just want to read the rebuttal again. I don't know, but
yeah.
So let's see here. Niels Harrit, Stephen Jones, and other 9/11 controlled demolition theorists claim to have found nanothermite particles in dust samples from the World Trade Center. They made sure that the dust samples were untainted and used advanced instruments to measure what happened when these tiny red-gray chips were heated up. Thermites reach temperatures of about 4,500 degrees and have their own oxygen supply when they burn, so they can burn underwater. These guys should have heated up the chips in a nitrogen or argon atmosphere to eliminate the possibility that regular hydrocarbons were burning. They also failed to take the carbon-based products out of the mix, so what we may well be seeing is some kind of carbon-based product burning in oxygen.
You probably know more about physics and history than I do, but I know that you could take a pile of firewood and stack it in those buildings or any amount of furniture you wanted. In most of those buildings, it was very restricted what you could bring in, but you could bring in, 50 cords of firewood and put it up there and light it, and you would get an oxygen-starved fire with black smoke, which is what we saw, and it would not be a hot enough fire to do much damage. It could not possibly get over half of the temperature that it would take to melt steel.
Now, the NASA thermal images showed a maximum temperature in the rubble of 1,400 degrees, while of course the argument is that there's much higher because of molten steel and and nanothermites and so on. And I think that's a challenge as well. Also, the firefighters did pour literally millions of gallons of water onto this rubble. And of course, when water comes in contact with molten steel or iron, there's a fairly deadly and extensive set of thermal explosions that take place, and none of that occurred.